Muslim alliance with Rome in Afghanistan. This topic is constantly going to increase in importance, and so it would be beneficial if we have not started to study it as yet, we start from tonight, which means when you go back home, you're going to pick up the Quran. My teacher of blessed memory, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, left behind that magnificent work of his, the Quranic foundations and structure of Muslim society in 2 volumes. We probably have it on time, do we? Yeah. And in that book, he explained the methodology for studying the Quran. We don't have the time tonight to repeat that methodology. But Allah Himself has taught it at the beginning of the Quran when He asked the angels to make sajda before Adam alayhi salam. And if you use the wrong methodology, you'll come to the conclusion that Iblis was an angel. If you use the wrong methodology. If you use the right methodology, which means to go to the whole Quran, then you won't make a mistake. You won't make a mistake. So the right methodology is to go to the whole Quran. The right methodology is also to begin your study with the Quran and not with the Hadith. How many times should I repeat that? 500,000 times? The right methodology is to always begin your study with the Quran, not with the Hadith. Begin with the Quran. And after you study the Quran, then you go to the Hadith. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 2 oceans. And everyone in Cape Town knows that the most learned of all men is to be found where the 2 oceans meet. The first time I visited Cape Town, they took me. And I said, yeah, these are the 2 oceans. And you will find him sitting on a rock, not on shifting sand, on a rock. So, the 2 oceans in the Quran are the ocean of ayat, muhkama, which are plain and clear. And Allah says about them that these are kitab, the heart of the book, is there. And then there's another ocean, which is called the ayat, mutashabihat. And these are not plain and clear. No. These have to be subjected to something called ta'wil. This one is only tafsir, explanation. This one is ta'wil, to interpret. And if you make a mistake here, it can be very funny. Like, for example, he put 2 threads underneath his pillow, one white thread and one black thread. And in the morning he's waiting to see when to begin the fast. Because Allah says we should begin the fasting when the white thread is distinct from the black thread. Shake your head if you remember it, huh? Alright? But he had some difficulty. The white thread and the black thread. When do I begin the fast? So Ramadan. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ, who gave ta'wil. He gave ta'wil. No, you don't have to take a white thread and a black thread. No! Sometimes I have to raise my voice because they don't hear me. No, the white thread and the black thread are symbolic. Meaning, when the light of the day is distinct from the darkness of the night. When it comes to Akhirul Zaman, most of what is in the Quran is not there. It's there. In Mutashabihat. And Mutashabihat of the rational faculty. That's why Washington is so angry, and Jerusalem is so angry, and the enemies are so angry because they cannot penetrate the Quran. No. Praise be to Allah. The only way you can penetrate the Mutashabihat is if Allah gives you something called Noor. It's not sold in the stock market. You can't buy it in Washington. No. And if you use the correct methodology of the totality of the subject. And so when we come to the subject of the alliance with Rome in Akhirul Zaman, and of course you know Akhirul Zaman, the last age. Not the end of the world, because only Allah knows when the world will end. Not even George Bush knows it. Only Allah knows when the world will end. But Akhirul Zaman is the end of history, when truth will triumph over all rivals in the most conclusive and most comprehensive triumph of all. Then it will be plain and clear to see where is truth. Is it in this book, which says that it is haram to lend money and interest to all of mankind? And this book came from Allah. Or is it in that book which also came from Allah, the Torah, which also came from Allah? The Torah which also came from Allah. But which says that you cannot lend money and interest to your fellow Israelite. Haram. But it's okay, you can lend money and interest to those who are not Israelites. That's halal. So now you decide. Where is truth? If we recognize that there is riba all over the world today, then we recognize we in Akhirul Zaman, because he prophesied, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the time will come when you'll not be able to find a single person, not one, in all of mankind who will not be consuming riba. If that is not a wake-up call for those who eat biryani and go home and sleep, if that is not a wake-up call, where is the wake-up call? You'll not be able to find a single person in all of mankind who will not be consuming riba. When last did you hear a khutbah on the mimbar devoted only to the subject of riba? When last did you hear any comprehensive assessment of the banking system around the world today? Never before in history did we have a banking system. Never before in history did we ever have a banking system. We have it now. Did it drop out of the sky? Or did it come with Pan American Express? What is the explanation? And what about the riba in the monetary system? You take paper, you print a picture on it. And please remember, your brother Imran has studied this subject, okay? You take paper, you print a picture on it, you put a number in it, and you assign to that piece of paper an entirely fictitious value. You call it money. And you accept it and you eat your biryani and you go home and sleep. Whereas Allah says that He sent the Quran لِقَوْمِ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, to a people who think. So why don't we think anymore? Why don't we recognize it as bogus and fraudulent and utterly haram? This is not irresponsible language, no. I'm sitting in a masjid. I have to be careful of my language. When you see riba all over in the world, you know you're living in Akhirul Zaman. When you see women dressed and yet naked, you know you're in Akhirul Zaman. So, an alliance with Rome, a Muslim alliance with Rome in Akhirul Zaman. Who is Rome? is room? Well, we are familiar with the word room because there's Surah Al-Rum of the Quran. So we are familiar with the term. We can't say, I didn't hear this term before. No. Unless you pick up the Quran only once in your lifetime. And when you go to the Quran, the word room is located in the Quran. So where do you begin your study? If you want to answer the question, if you want to be honest, if you want to have 1 ounce of intellectual integrity, where do you begin your study? Answer me. Where do you begin your study if you want to answer the question, who or what is room? Where is intellectual integrity today? Where is honesty today? Why can't you start with the Quran? Ask them for me, please. The word room is in the Quran. So you have to begin your study to answer the question, who is room? You have to begin with the Quran, not with the Hadith, with the Quran. So let's do that. And when we do that, we soon recognize there's also mutashabihat there. There's muhkamat, but also mutashabihat. فَأَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ Alif Lam Mim, sorry. Alif Lam Mim. And one day, inshallah, somebody using right methodology and with Nur will explain to us what is Alif Lam Mim. It has not been done as yet. It will come inshallah one day. غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ Rome has been defeated. When did Allah speak these words? It was while we were still in Mecca. We had not as yet gone on the Hijrah to Medina. And we were in confrontation with a pagan world. A pagan world is confronting a world which believes in a book which has come from Allah. That's the contest here in Mecca. But there is a similar contest somewhere else. A pagan world is confronting a world which believes in a book which has come from Allah. And Allah Himself uses a term to describe people who believe in a book which has come from Him. He calls them Ahlul Kitab. So don't you dare take this term and throw it in the garbage bin. When He, subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has conferred this title on them. He has done it. He's called them Ahlul Kitab. And in this case, the context taking place was between the Christians and the pagan Persians. They worship fire. Today there are many worshipping gold. And these here believe in a book which came from Allah, the Gospel of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, indeed. And Allah now speaks about these people who are Christians, and He says, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ Rome has been defeated. The Christians have been defeated. فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ In a land close by to where the Quran is being revealed. They've been defeated. وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ But Allah is making a divine prophecy. Divine prophecy. Like for example, when He said about Abu Lahab, he's a kafir. Tabbat yada Abi Lahab. So Abu Lahab has a chance now. He can prove the Quran wrong. All he has to do is take the Shahada. That's what he has to do. So Allah saying, in a few years' time, in a few years' time, Makkah, watch, the Quran is saying to pagan Makkah, watch it. This book is saying that in a few years' time, these Christians are going to turn the tables and defeat that pagan world. So you over here in this contest with the Muslims, watch it. The same thing can happen here, it's going to happen there. غُلِبَتِ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ. Actually, it was the year 613. Yes, 613, which will be before the Hijrah. And the Persian Empire took Syria, conquered Damascus, which was a part of Rome. And then in 614, they conquered Jerusalem. And they destroyed the main church, okay? They took away the cross. And in 615 and 616, they conquered Egypt. And by 616, they also laid siege to the capital city of Rome, which was Constantinople. The Persian Empire is laying siege to it. And the pagan Arabs of Makkah are so happy because they are siding together with pagan Persia. As today, you see so many siding with the pagan world out there, which now has taken off his clothes and his nakedness is there for everybody to see, where a man could marry another man and get a marriage certificate. That pagan world, that world that is smelling bad, they were happy of the victories being achieved by Persia, as they are celebrating what ISIS is doing, you know. When ISIS puts a video that they beheaded so many people in Libya, we don't know who manufactured the video. We don't know where the technicians came from. We don't know where they got the cameras from, state of the art. And when ISIS gathers all the girls and passes them out as milk and yummy, slavery is back again. They are celebrated out there. Celebrated their victory because they created ISIS. So, but we are pained in the heart because we are associating ourselves with the people who also got a book, who are Ahlul Kitab. So when Allah gave the news that all this string of defeats now, and Rome seems as though it's about to collapse. There is no hope now for Rome, because the Persians have laid siege to the capital city itself, Constantinople. We are feeling pain in the heart. This is shortly before the Hijrah that Allah sent down the news that no. Février, with just a few years, Rome is going to be victorious. This sounded impossible. How could this possibly take place? No military analyst could possibly see that Rome could turn the tide against the Persian Empire when all of the defeat is all around you. So, the pagan Arabs were taunting the Muslims. They wanted a bet. Your book is prophesying, come on. So the bet was made with Abu Bakr Siddiq, 100 camels, a lot of camels. And the bet was that, okay, we're going to see it within 3 years. This is going to take place. Rome is going to defeat within 3 years. And then he came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, this is what I did. The Prophet said, no. increase it from 3, because bidr could be between 3 and 10, between 3 and 10. So that was the bet. At that time, the revelation had not come down to make gambling haram. So the bet was still valid at that time. And then we made the hijrah. And Allah went on to say, Lillahi al-amr min qabl wa min ba'd. That the decision making concerning victory is with Allah. Bi nasrillah, Allah is going to provide His help for victory. Min qabl, the first time, the previous time, wa min ba'd, and the next time, it is with Allah's help that victory will be achieved. Bi nasrillah. Lillahi al-amr, the command is with Allah. It was about maybe 5-6 years after the Hijrah that the Byzantine emperor was overthrown by his own people, because he was leading them to defeat after defeat. And the governor of Egypt was brought to take over, Heraclius. And when he took over the leadership of the Christian Byzantine Empire, he was able to turn the tides. But this is somewhere around maybe the 6th year of the Hijrah. It was 624. 622, somewhere around there. وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. On that day, you're going to be very happy, not just because you won the bet and you got the 100 camels. We did get the 100 camels. But by that time, the revelation had come down, making gambling haram. So we took the 100 camels. Oh yes, we did. But the Prophet ﷺ ordered that they be given in charity. Given in charity, okay? But by the time the prophecy, the divine prophecy in the Quran was fulfilled, and the truth of the Quran was now dazzling like the sunshine for the whole world to see, Arabia had woken up. And now, وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Because here is this book which prophesied the impossible. And here before our very eyes we have seen, just within a few years the tables were turned. And now Byzantium is victorious, and it is Persia which is begging for a ceasefire. And Persia which agrees to give up Syria, and give up Egypt, and give up Jerusalem, and give up so many things. And so the impact upon the Arab Peninsula was magnificent because of this verse of the Quran. And large numbers of tribes are now entering into Islam. وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. We are celebrating not just because of the 300 to 100 camels. We are celebrating because the truth of the Quran is now plain for all the world to see. Let's repeat that. That the claim of this book, that it is the word of the God of Abraham alayhi salam, and the God of Moses alayhi salam, the claim of this book is now validated, plain for the whole world to see. Or what about لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد. Decision making is with Allah, the command is with Allah, victory. The Nasr of Allah, which will come, which will give victory. Which victory? Min qabl, the previous one. Or min ba'd, the subsequent one. The previous victory is the victory that was prophesied. And that was what the death was over. Which is the second one? Or min ba'd. It cannot be the conquest, the Battle of Badr. Because the Battle of Badr took place just after the Hijrah. Just after the Hijrah. And so, some of the commentators of the Quran, giving ta'weel now, mutashabihat ta'weel, they say, well, we believe it is the conquest of Makkah, which took place after Byzantium was defeated. Whenever you make a ta'weel, you must say Allah knows best. No one can prevent you from doing it. You have the right. But Allah knows best. We can be correct or we can be wrong. Allah knows best. Don't need for any boxing gloves over ta'weel. No. Tonight your brother wants to suggest another ta'weel. That Allah is speaking about the same room. And Rome had a previous victory. And the same Rome will have another victory. Min qabl or min ba'd. This one has more consistency in it. So Rome is the Christian Byzantine Empire, which had its capital in Constantinople. When the Ottoman Empire, which was created by Dajjal, defeated Byzantium and took their capital city, Constantinople, they added some salt to the wound by taking the greatest cathedral of Rome, Hagia Sophia, which is a church, which is a cathedral. The difference between a church and a cathedral is that the cathedral will be the administrative capital for all the churches. And the Ottoman Sultan, and I choose my words with great care, shamefully and disgracefully and manifestly sinfully took a Christian cathedral and transformed it into a masjid, to the everlasting shame and disgrace of the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And don't come to me with any bogus fiqh. No, about the laws of war and peace that you created. And as a consequence of that, Rome was stabbed in the back. They've lost their capital city, and to add insult to injury, their cathedral is now a masjid. Worse than that, the Ottomans took the Khilafah of Islam, which should never have left the Arab heartland of Islam. They took the Khilafah of Islam out of the Arab world and took it to the capital city of Rome, which made it easier for the Khilafah to be abolished, to be dismantled. So the Ottomans acted in a very sinister way. When they captured Constantinople, the successor regime, which is Mustafa Kemal, did something even more mysterious. When Nabi Muhammad ﷺ used the name Constantinople, it becomes Sunnah. Is it? Am I right? Am I correct to say? Are you afraid? If Muhammad ﷺ used the name Constantinople, then it is sunnah to use the name Constantinople, isn't it? Right, you're shaking your head. Good, I'm glad that you're shaking your head. So if Nabi Muhammad ﷺ married a child who was 6 years of age, it is sunnah to marry a child who is 6 years of age. Now shake your head. Go ahead and shake your head. Is there anyone who will stand up and say? Who will have the courage and the integrity tonight to stand up and say? Since that is what Sahih Bukhari says, that he married me when I was 6 years of age. He married me. I'm not talking about consummation. I'm talking about nikah. He married me when I was 6. So it is sunnah in Islam to marry a 6-year-old child. Is that your religion? Is that your religion? Has there ever been one Muslim in the entire history of Islam that you know of who's followed this sunnah? Huh? Well, let's leave that subject. For those who are eating biryani and going to sleep, maybe they will come now. So what this Ottoman Empire did was to put that dagger in the heart of Rome and then cause it to bleed. And there's so many more things that the Ottomans did, but I don't have the time to tell you about it. But what Mustafa Kemal did, following faithfully in the footsteps of the Ottomans, was to change the name of the city, to use one of the other names. You know, like New York is also called the Big Apple. So Istanbul was one of the other names. It was also called Istanbul. So now he changed the name, but more than that. Mustafa Kemal and his government made it illegal to use the name Constantinople. If you go to Turkey and you use the name Constantinople, they can throw you in jail. That sounds to me sinister. There will be something in the dal out there cooking. Let's find out what is it. Why have they banned the name Constantinople? Why did they take the capital city and bring the Khilafah here in the capital city of Rome? Why did they take the greatest cathedral and transform it into a masjid? Are these things happening by accident? If you believe that, you've got peanuts in your head. Let's take a little walk. Let's go through the Quran and see what Allah has to say in the Quran, so we can understand the sinister role played by the Ottoman Empire and by Mustafa Kemal. Allah speaks in the Quran and He uses fi'l mudariya, which is mean the present tense or the future tense. But when we look at the context, we have to eliminate the present tense. Only the future tense remains. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. لَتَجِدَنَّ, you will most certainly find in time to come. أَشَدَّ النَّاسِ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودِ, those amongst mankind who would have the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for you would be the Jews. If you use a schoolboy methodology, you come to the conclusion Allah is speaking about all the Jews. What rubbish. What nonsense. That's not proper methodology. Use that methodology, Iblis is an angel. Got to go to the whole book. No, Allah is not speaking about all Jews, not at all. You will most certainly find in time to come, a time will come, when amongst mankind the Jews are going to have the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for you. Ask any Palestinian today, and he'll tell you, it has come. The time has come. وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, there's another world which is also going to show great hatred and enmity and hostility for you. It is a world which is pagan. a world which is worshipping other than Allah. Should I introduce you to that world? What day of the week is coming tomorrow? Oh, we've already started tonight. Which one is? Did you say Friday? Did you say Friday? Huh? Where you got the word Friday from? Did you know Friday is the day of the worship of Fry? Did you know that? And guess who is Fry? She's a Scandinavian goddess, probably blonde hair. A Scandinavian goddess. Her name is Fry. Check it out. Check out Monday if you want. Check out Tuesday, check out Wednesday. Huh? Did you know that if you make haram what Allah made halal, that is shirk? Did you know that? Surah At-Tawbah. Or if you make halal what Allah made haram, that is shirk? Yes. Did Allah make dinar and dirham halal? Is it in the Quran? Yes. Can South Africa use dinar and dirham, gold coins and silver coins as money today? No. Why? Because South Africa is a member state of the International Monetary Fund, created by that pagan world out there where a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate. And that Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund makes it haram to use gold as money. I wonder why. Did the Quran come for people who think? Are we thinking? No, we're not thinking. Not at all. We're eating biryani and going home and sleeping. That's what we do. And we're all using the paper money, all of us. When will we wake up? When will we think? That world is built on shirk. Everything about it is shirk. It's a pagan world. And that world is displaying the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for Islam and Muslims today. Charlie, you heard about Charlie 9/11 Hebdo? Yeah. Charlie 9/11 Hebdo? False flags, blaming it on us. You heard about 9/11 when what was his name? Osama bin Laden and some men hiding in caves in Afghanistan kept the US Air Force on the ground for 2.5 hours? Huh? If Osama bin Laden and his men hiding in a cave in Afghanistan could keep the US Air Force on the ground for 2.5 hours, then a cow can also jump over the moon. You will most certainly find in time to come that those who will display the greatest hatred and enmity and hostility for you will be these people. That's happening today. There's someone sitting in the gathering here tonight, I don't want to mention his name, he just said to me, he said that place is not fit for human beings to live. That's what he just told me. That Western world where a man could live marry another man. He said to me, it's not a fit place for human beings to live. That's what he said to me. He's sitting somewhere in the gathering. And Allah goes on to say, at that time when this appears in the world, it never happened before, it's now happening for the first time. وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى. That you will most certainly find at that time, when these things appear, that those who will be closest in love and affection for you will be those who say, we are Christians. You have a problem with that? Take it up with Allah, not with me. Take it up with Him, not with me. This is His word. He has spoken. The rest of us submit. The rest of us accept it's the word of Allah and we submit. But if you have a problem with it and your head cannot bow to the Quran, you've got a problem. Is Allah speaking about all Christians? When He said that you will most certainly find those who will be closest in love and affection for you at that time to be those who say we are Christians. Is He talking about all Christians? Schoolboy methodology, yes. But proper methodology, no. Why? Because Allah speaks in the Quran in the same Surah Al-Ma'idah. And He gives a command. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have faith in Allah. La tattakhidhu al-yahuda wal-nasara awliya. Do not take the Jews and do not take the Christians as your friends and allies. But over here, He said these are going to be closest in love and affection for you. So He couldn't be speaking about all Jews and all Christians. No. So He can't be saying don't take all the Jews and don't take all the Christians as your friends and allies. This is not difficult. So then which Jews and which Christians is He talking about? When He said don't take them as your friends and allies, which ones? The answer is there in the words which follow. بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ بَعْدُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Don't take such Jews and don't take such Christians as your friends and allies, who themselves are friends and allies of each other. Those who have the Arabic language, they start to cry. They start to cry when the words of the Quran come alive before them. And they're seeing the words of the Quran for the first time. Don't take such Jews and don't take such Christians as your friends and allies, who themselves are friends and allies of each other. That's really going to happen. How could Jews and Christians become friends and allies of each other? When the Christians accuse the Jews of the ultimate crime, killing God Himself. You can't do worse than that. You kill God because they worship Jesus. And they accuse the Jews of crucifying Jesus. They're responsible. So this seems impossible, but yet the Quran is anticipating a time which will come when this is going to happen. It has happened. And if you want to know how it happened, read my book, An Islamic View of Gog and Magog in the Modern World, and then you'll understand how it happened. But today we have a Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance. That Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance controls power in the United States, in Britain, in France, in Germany, in that part of Europe where a man can marry another man and get a marriage certificate. But there is no Jewish-Christian alliance in the other part of Europe. Russia is a part of Europe, of course. Greece is a part of Europe, of course. Except that Greece has been in bad company for some time now. And now Greece is withdrawing, praise be to Allah, on that bad company. Don't take those Jews and those Christians as your friends and allies. And Allah goes on to say, وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ. Whosoever from amongst you turn to them with friendship and alliance, you now belong to them. You no longer belong to us, you're not recognized as Muslim anymore. You've left the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ. وَمَنْ يَتَوَلَّهُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ مِنْهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Surely Allah does not provide guidance for people who are wicked. Is it time for that? No. CA 394608. Your car. Can you try to help out the situation? Thank you. So shall I continue? Yeah. You will most certainly find in time to come that those who will be closest in love and affection for you will be people who say we are Christians. We could be those Christians with whom we are prohibited from maintaining friendly ties and being their allies. So if they create a United Nations organization and we join the UN, you know where we're going. If they create the International Monetary Fund and we abandon dinar and dirham, which is sunnah, and we join them in their embrace, you know where we're heading. You know that already. You've left the Ummah of Muhammad. And if you didn't know it, when you go in your grave, you'll know it, because this is the Quran we're speaking. This is the Quran we're speaking. So which Christians is Allah speaking about? The Quran answers, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ مِنْهُمُ الْقِسِّيسِينَ وَرُهْبَانًا وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. These are Christians you will be able to recognize because they are still holding on to the institution of monasticism, the monastery, Rahbaniyah. Over there in that part of the world, you may have one or two monasteries still living a lingering life, walking with a walking stick, while the rest of the society is going towards a godless world. But in this part of the Christian world, which is going to be the closest in love and affection for you, you will see them holding on to the monastery, to the monastic life, to the monks, Rahbaniyah. Where is it? Today, it is the Orthodox Christian world which the Quran refers to as Rome. They are the ones who still have monasticism. It is not a receding force yet. It is gathering momentum after the Soviet Union created by the Zionists, communism created by the Zionists, the Bolshevik Revolution which was perpetrated by the Russian Jews. When all of this has gone and Russia has survived, Russia is returning to Rome. And the monasteries are being rebuilt. Over there they're selling the monasteries to McDonald's. And over here they're rebuilding the monasteries that the Zionist Soviet Union had destroyed. وَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. And these are not an arrogant people. No. If you want to see arrogance, head for Washington, head for London, head for Paris, and you see arrogance. Yeah. وَلَنْ تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودَ وَلَا النَّصَارَ حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. Who is Allah talking about? Have you ever asked yourself? A people who think Allah is speaking about those Christians and those Jews who have this arrogance in them, that they want to transform all of mankind into carbon copies of themselves. وَلَنْ تَرْضَى عَنْكَ الْيَهُودَ وَلَا النَّصَارَ حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. They will never be contented until they get you to live their way of life. So when it's a dish of curry, fish and rice, and you roll up your sleeve, and you wash your hands, and you start eating your curry, fish and rice, and you, Alhamdulillah, they will look at you and say, what barbarians you are, uncivilized people. Civilized way of life is to use cutlery. You don't use your hands and fingers. And when you want to dress in such a way for Salah, because you know a woman can be praying behind you. In the Islam that came from Muhammad Islam, I'm not talking about today's Islam. In that Islam which came from Muhammad Islam, a woman can be praying behind you. And the Prophet said, Islam, because nobody bothers to say this anymore today, we put in a place called cold storage. when the women go down in Sajda, it is in Sahih Muslim, if you can get it out of the cold storage, when the women go down in Sajda, they must remain longer than the men. If you have tears, you can weep now for that time. If you have tears, you can weep. When the women go down in Sajda, they must remain in Sajda longer than the men. Because some of the men may not have enough cloth to cover themselves properly. And if a woman raises her head, you remember I'm talking about the Islam which came from Muhammad alayhi Islam. That Islam I'm talking about. It will be an unwelcome sight for her. What is he talking about? Men used to wear 2 pieces of clothing. We know the lower part, because you have to ride a camel, you have to ride a horse, it has to be trousers like the Pakistani shalwar. You could climb over. We know how it was cut. So he's talking about the upper garment, not the lower garment. Some of the men may not have enough cloth to cover themselves properly. And if a woman were to raise her head, it would be an unwelcome sight. So women must remain in Sajda longer than men. Meaning that the upper garment was not long enough that when you go down in Sajda, it will fall behind you to cover the back. That's what he's talking about. But if you wear clothes like that today, you can't get a job. No. You'll be fired. To be properly dressed, to be dressed in a civilized way, you got to put your trousers inside, your shirt inside of your trousers, you see. That's arrogance. That's arrogance on their part. But not this part of the Christian world. They're not like that. So when Allah is speaking about the Quran, in the Quran about the Christian people, who in time to come will be the closest in love and affection for you, He's talking about Rum. And this is confirmed in Surah Al-Rum, because when they defeated Persia, وَيَوْمَئِذٍ يَفْرَحُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. On that day, when Rome was victorious, we celebrated. We celebrated. So are we allowed to have an alliance with the Christian people? So that's the topic. الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Now if you want to know about alliances, about military affairs, strategic environment, so on, treaties and so on, which surah of the Quran you go to? Surah Al-Anfal. So when you go to Surah Al-Anfal, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, the kuffar, بَعَدُوهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. They are friends and allies of each other. Allah is saying, إِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا, if you do not do the same, إِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. If you do not do the same, establish alliances, there is going to be great fitna and fasad in the world. It has come. That's where we are now. If we are to establish alliances, where do we begin? Answer: begin in the house of Islam. That's where you begin. We are Muslims. Are the Shia kuffar? Are the Shia kuffar? I hope that Allah will take these words of mine out of this masjid as well, so others may hear. There is a way in which a community of people can be designated as kuffar. So if they didn't remember it, because they are scholars, they should have remembered, let Imran remind them tonight. This is beautiful Cape Town. We don't have any boxing gloves. We're not waging any war with anyone. It's a scholarly discussion. The method is that you have to issue a fatwa. And since you're dealing with a community of people, it has to be a fatwa delivered by a scholar, recognized as a scholar of some rank. not a schoolboy who just graduated from Darul. And when that fatwa of kufr is given, it has to be, you have to argue the case in a logical, legal way, providing all the arguments. When you have delivered the fatwa, then the fatwa has to be examined by the world of scholars. And when you have ijma'a of the ulama, ijma', consensus among the ulama, like for example the Ahmadiyya, the Qadiani, then and only then can you say that these people are kuffar. If we ever had such a fatwa, and if such a fatwa had ever reached ijma', then how come the Shia have always performed the Hajj all through our history and their history? And up to this day, there's not a single demonstration anywhere in the world protesting. Huh? Nobody is protesting. You should be out on the street there protesting, demonstrating. These people are kuffar, they should not be allowed to perform the Hajj. Huh? It has never happened in the history of Islam. And it's now too late. It's now too late to come with this claim that they are kuffar. No, that's not the way. If you want to say they're kuffar, be careful. You must give the fatwa. And show me the fatwa. And let the fatwa be seen by all the scholars. And let the scholars then decide whether they agree with it or not. Then you know whether they are kuffar. Not this way. If they are not kuffar, then why is there the drum beating for Sunni Shia civil war in the house of Islam? It is Dajjal who is doing that. He's doing that to pave the way for Israel to wage a big war. That's why. So what we have to do is the opposite. We have to reach out to the Shia with respect, not cutting any corners, no. And respectfully dialogue with them, respectfully. No boxing gloves. And build solidarity between a common people against a common enemy outside there. But what about outside the house of Islam? Are we allowed to have friendship and alliance with people outside the house of Islam? Let's return to Surah Al-Anfal. Inna ladhina amanu, surely those who have faith in this Quran, وَهَاجَرُوا, and who have made hijrah, migrated, وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and who have struggled in the way of Allah with their lives and with their property. وَالَّذِينَ آوَوا وَنَصَرُوا, those who sheltered them, and those who sheltered them, and those who sheltered them. Have we forgotten? Have we forgotten? The first hijrah, our people had to go to Abyssinia, and Abyssinia opened their heart and opened their arms and welcomed us and protected us. And when Makkah sent Abu Sufyan, what did the niggers do? The niggers listened to what he had to say and do it until they get out, get lost. I'll never give them up. I'll never give them up. وَآوَوا وَنَصَرُوا, those who protected us and who helped us. أُولَٰئِكَ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. أُولَٰئِكَ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. These are friends and allies of each other. So the Quran is saying that it is permissible to have friendship and alliance with a Christian people, okay, who protected us, who assisted us. الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله والذين آووا ونصروا أولئك هم المؤمنون حقا لهم مغفرة ورزق كريم. These are the true believers, the ones who protected us and sheltered us and helped us, plus those who have faith in Allah. These are the true believers. For them there is maghfirah, there is forgiveness for rizqun kareem, and a great reward. Who is the leader of Rome today? That was Rome in Abyssinia. Who is the leader of Rome today? Since the Ottomans took Constantinople, is it we who will decide who is their leader, or do they decide? Huh? I think it's arrogant on our part that we will decide who is their leader. It sounds more intelligent that they should say who is their leader. The Orthodox Christian world today overwhelmingly recognizes Russia as its leader, because Russia is far and away the most powerful state. Rome is not a church. Rome is an entity which can wage war, because Rome has been defeated. It's not a religion which was defeated. It was not a church or a cathedral which was defeated. It was a state with an army. That's Rome. And Russia today is recognized as the leader of Rome. Yes, there is a contest between Greece and Russia. Why? Because it was the Greek Orthodox Church. They were the ones who were Christians first. And they did Hagia Sophia. And when the Russians were looking to see which religion they should adopt, and they sent a delegation, and the delegation reached to Constantinople, and they saw Hagia Sophia, that was it. They fell in love with this building. And they said, no, we have to join the Orthodox Church, not that one in Rome. So the Greeks say, well, we were Christians before them. Because of us, they became Christians. So how could they lead the Orthodox one? Well, the answer is obvious. Greece could not be the leader of Rome today because Greece is in bad company. Greece is in bad company. First of all, they used the Ottoman Empire to conquer Greece and to take control of Greece. And the Ottomans ruled over Greece for a few hundred years. Until the time came when it was no longer necessary for them to have help from the Ottoman Empire. And they were about to dump the Ottoman Empire. Like tomorrow they'll dump Saudi Arabia. So what did they do? They came to the support of Greece, Britain and France, and waged a war. I think it was called the Balkan War. And that's how Greece emerged as an independent state, thanks to Britain and France. But Britain and France didn't hand Greece her independence just like that and say thank you, goodbye. They kept Greece in their embrace. So that Greece could not go to Russia, could not be part of Rome. And that embrace continued until Greece became a member of NATO. Today Greece is still a member of NATO. Greece is in terrible company. Greece cannot be the leader of Rome while Greece is a member of NATO. So then who else is the leader of Rome today? Don't tell me it's the patriarch in Istanbul, Mustafa Kemal's Istanbul, who doesn't even have a tank and an aeroplane and must be a Turkish citizen. No. The answer, if you want to be honest, is that Russia is the leader of Rome today, if you want to be honest. You may like it, you may dislike it, but that's the correct answer. Russia is the leader of Rome today. And if we are to form alliances, إِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. If you do not do it, there will be great fitna and fasad in the world if you do not make alliances. So based solely on the Quran, I have not based solely on the Quran, there is an imperative for us to establish friendship and alliance with Russia as the leader of Rome and with the rest of the Orthodox Christian world. This is why I traveled to Russia, to Moscow, a year and a half ago. I gave a lecture at the International Islamic University in Malaysia on the conquest of Constantinople in Akhir al-Zaman. And they heard the lecture in Russia, and they were very pleased. And they invited me from the State University of Moscow. Alexander Dugin was one of Russia's eminent thinkers. And I went, and I gave a lecture on an introduction to Islamic eschatology. The scholars were there, but not just the political thinkers and so on, but the eschatologists, the people who knew Christian eschatology. One of the foremost was sitting on my left side. And Dugin was translating to Russian while I was speaking. And they treated me with respect, yes. They showed affection for me, yes. There was never any hostility towards me or towards Islam. How different from Washington. And they invited me to come again. But most important of all, for the first time, they were introduced to a Sunni Islamic eschatology. First time. All that they'd heard before was a Shia eschatology. The big difference between the two came as a wonderful surprise to them. The Shia eschatology was that the sign of all signs of Akhir al-Zaman, the mother of all signs of Akhir al-Zaman, is the advent of Imam al-Mahdi. And I said, no, my Shia brothers are wrong. The Quran confirms that the sign of all signs of Akhir al-Zaman وَإِنَّهُ لَعِلْمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ, which can also be read as لَعَلَمٌ لِلسَّاعَةِ. It is Nabi Isa alayhi salam. The return of the son of Mary. When they heard that, they almost tears in their eyes. They were so happy that Islamic eschatology and Orthodox Christian eschatology were speaking with one voice. It touched their hearts. And when we talk about the conquest of Constantinople, now we have to go to the hadith. لَتَفْتَحَنَّ الْقُسْطَنْطِنِيَّةَ. You will most certainly, the first time I'm quoting a hadith now. First time. لَتَفْتَحَنَّ الْقُسْطَنْطِنِيَّةَ. You will most certainly conquer Constantinople. وَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ آمِرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشُ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشُ. What a wonderful commander would that be, of that army. What a wonderful army that would be. Of course, Sultan Muhammad Fatih declared, I am the one prophesied by the Prophet. That's false, Imam. False, Sultan, that's false. Why? Because the conquest of Constantinople comes after the Malhama. Malhama has not taken place as yet, Sultan. Who are you fooling? When I told them this, there were almost tears in their eyes, because we also have the same thing in our eschatology, that there's going to be a conquest of Constantinople. And I said to them, when we conquer Constantinople, and that is coming, the first thing we will do is to return Hagia Sophia to you. It is your church. The second thing we will do is to apologize to you for what our people did in taking your church and converting it into a masjid. We'll apologize to you for that. And the third thing that we'll do is to restore the name of the city to the name used by Muhammad alayhi salatu, Constantinople. They invited me to come back right away. Later this year, I plan to return to Moscow, inshallah. Those hotel where you have halal restaurants close by. And later this year I want to visit Greece for the first time. Because Greece is in bad company. But those who have not been eating biryani and going to sleep would know that very wonderful things have been happening over the last 2 weeks in Greece. They planned their plan for the last 200 years. And Allah planned His plans, like they did with Crimea. And suddenly, look at what's happening. Allah is the best of planners. Crimea was Russian territory, and Crimea is back in Russia, as Russian territory. Praise be to Allah. And I'm celebrating. And Greece is standing up to them with a backbone made of steel. So it's only a matter of time, because before Greece returns to Rome and slap them on their ugly face. This has been Muslim alliance with Rome in Akhir Zaman. I apologize for taking so much time. But do please go back. Take up Surah Al-Rum of the Quran. Take up Surah Al-Ma'idah of the Quran. Take up Surah Al-Anfal in the Quran. And try to connect the dots. Bring the verses of the Quran together so you can understand what Allah is saying in the Quran, which explains the world today and allows you to anticipate the world tomorrow. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ آمين.
So a question I want to ask, Haruna mentioned the Russians being the Orthodox Jews, the Orthodox Church. What is the relation between that segment and the people of Gog and Magog that's buried in the Ural Mountains being on the Russian side? Is there a relation to that?
The question is, what is the relationship between Russia, Orthodox Christian Russia, and Gog and Magog, and the Caucasus Mountains? If you want to study the subject of Gog and Magog, where do you start? Huh? Yes. You don't start with one solitary hadith in Sahih Muslim, which you misinterpret to say that Gog and Magog will be released, because it does not say that. Only after Nabi Isa alayhi salam returned that he killed Dajjal. So Gog and Magog have absolutely nothing to do with what's going on in the world today. Huh? That is not the way to study the subject. Wrong. You have to begin your study with the Quran. With the Quran. If you don't, you are disrespecting the Quran. And you pay a price for that. When you begin the study with the Quran, then you realize who are Gog and Magog. They would be a people, human beings, not jinn and not angels, human beings, who are going to bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after Allah expelled them. This is a ta'weel of the ayah of the Quran, ta'weel. And who brought them back? It is that Judeo-Christian Zionist alliance. And we distinguish these from those, Russia and the Orthodox, because in addition to what I told you previously, this civilization out there, they have only one man is allowed to have a big beard. Only one. Everybody else must shave your beard. Can't work in the police service with a beard. Can't be in the armed forces in a beard. Can't get a job in a hotel with a beard. But there's one man who's allowed to have a big, big beard. And he comes once a year on a reindeer in the sky. See? Santa Claus. This one doesn't have that. When I went to Moscow, I saw lots of beards. That's Gog and Magog. But nobody teaches that subject today. Because Hadith says that after Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, and he's killed Dajjal, and he retires to Jerusalem, he goes up a mountain, Gog and Magog will attack him. Allah will send Gog and Magog. Allah will send Gog and Magog. But in the Quran it is something else. That the people of this town are prohibited from returning to the town to reclaim it on their own until Hatta إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ. Here it is released. Over there is sent. So what happened? What kind of scholarship is that you will have? So, it is not Russia with Gog and Magog. But I made a mistake. When I wrote my an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the model, it was the first volume. I made a mistake and I said Russia was Magog. I'm happy that I made that mistake. So people would know, when Imran gives his opinion, do not accept it. No. Until you are convinced that it is correct, then. So if I make a mistake, you're not going to repeat the mistake. That's the way Maulana Fazl Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, taught us. Subsequently, I realized that no, the Soviet Union was created by Gog and Magog, was part of Gog and Magog. Communism, atheism, the Bolshevik Revolution. And it came upon Russia to destroy Russia, to destroy Rome, to transform Russia into an atheist state. So Russia was never part of Gog and Magog. Never. It is the Soviet Union. How did these people become Gog and Magog? It is the barrier built by Zulkarnain. Behind that barrier is Gog and Magog. We know where it is. It is in the Caucasus Mountains. And behind that barrier in the Caucasus Mountains, there were the people who converted, became Jews. Yeah. Very strange. Converted and became Jews. And then some of them converted from Judaism to Christianity. So the Khaza were on both sides of the fence. The Jewish side and the Christian side in Europe. And that's how we've got the alliance. The Vatican too played a significant role in that. Okay? So that's where they came from behind the Caucasus Mountains. And we know that when they are released, they're going to head south, past the Sea of Galilee to Jerusalem. And while they're passing the Sea of Galilee, they're going to drink the water. And by the time the last of their class, they will say, there used to be water here. Sahih Muslim. Well, they've been passing for a long time now. That's what the Soviet Union was there for. The Soviet Union opened the doors for millions of them to leave the Soviet Union, Russia in particular, and migrate to the Holy Land. So they've been passing there for a long time now. Next question? Yeah.
Well, so the format that we're going to follow is questions, international questions as well from the internet. So I'm going to take one from the floor and one from the internet, okay? So I think it's just fair. Maulana, my question is, what is the role of Muslims in the Malhama when it is going to be fought between nuclear powers, namely Russia and NATO? This is from Tariq in Algeria.
One of my favorite countries is Algeria. The answer to that question is located in a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, but it's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to answer that. So you put me in a bind now. Yeah. It is the hadith about, again, in the same way that you have mutashabihat in the Quran, for which you make ta'weel, so too there are mutashabihat in the hadith, for which you have to make ta'weel, interpretation. Okay? When you make your interpretation, you must always say Allah knows best. And don't shove it down anybody's throat. People have the freedom to accept or not to accept. Okay? But you can't deny someone the right to interpret. No, that's wrong. The hadith which tells us how to behave in the Malhama is in Sahih Bukhari. That the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold, and people will fight for the gold. And 99 out of every 100 will be killed. That's the Malhama. 99 out of every 100 will be killed. That's not conventional warfare. And each one will say, I will be the one who will survive. But the believers must not touch that gold. That is the answer. The believers must not touch that gold. That's the only answer we have. If you wish to wait for a mountain of the metal to come out from underneath the river, that's your choice. But I suggest you get a comfortable sofa, because you've got a long, long way to head. We, on the other hand, we recognize it as mutashabihat, and we say you have to have a ta'weel, and we gave the ta'weel. We say that the mountain of gold that is coming out from underneath the river is an ocean of oil which will one day function as a mountain of gold. An ocean of oil which will one day function as a mountain of gold, and that happened. When did it happen? It happened when Henry Kissinger went to Faisal. I'm cutting a lot of corners now. Otherwise the answer is going to take half an hour. When Henry Kissinger, but all of this is on my YouTube lectures. You get all missing, you get it there. When Henry Kissinger went to Faisal in what year? 19? I don't believe it. I have students here. Do I have students here? 19? 70? 74. 1974. 73 was the war. 1974, he went to Faisal. Remember that the 1973 war, Arab-Israeli war, Faisal had threatened an oil boycott of the United States. And they knew it was coming. And they wanted it. They wanted it. As soon as they imposed the oil boycott, what happened to the price of oil? It rose by how much? Mr. Chairman, you listen to me? It rose by how much? 400%. From $3 a barrel to $12 a barrel. And the Arabs are now reaping a whirlwind of money. And Henry Kissinger said, this is peanuts. This is peanuts. You're going to get much more than that. And he was correct, he was truthful. All that you have to do is to sell your oil for only US dollars. That was wicked, that was haram, that was bogus, that was fraudulent, that was sinful, but poor Faisal didn't have the knowledge. He didn't have the knowledge. Then he got the other Arab oil producing countries to do likewise, and then the Zionists created the greatest triumph of all was when they produced something called OPEC, which consolidated the petrodollar monetary system. So the US dollar no longer needs any backing for gold, which was there in the Bretton Woods Accord and IMF. No. Now it's oil. And the US dollar is flying higher than it's ever flown before in history. The petrodollar monetary system. Okay? It came into being when an ocean of oil began to function as a mountain of gold. So 1974 was when the prophecy of the Prophet ﷺ was fulfilled. But you don't have to accept it. You can wait for the mountain of the metal to come out from underneath the river. They're going to fight for it. So now you can understand that Ukraine is only shadow boxing. What is happening in Ukraine is only shadow boxing. The real battle is over the monetary system. That's where the real battle is. The petrodollar monetary system. And there's a challenge to that monetary system now. They're fighting over it. Exactly what the Prophet said. Russia, China, India, Brazil, and another country called, I don't know whether you heard of it, South Africa. These 5 countries have come together in something called BRICS. And they are challenging the petrodollar monetary system by offering mankind an alternative which will have greater credibility, greater validity as a monetary system. So the malhama which is coming is going to be fought over the mountain of gold. And since the Prophet said, this malhama, we should not touch that gold. The implication of that hadith is that Muslims should now make tawbah for having abandoned the sunnah. When you know you have abandoned the sunnah and you have abandoned the Quran, then what do? You make tawbah. You turn around and you return. You return to the Quran and Sunnah. Is that so difficult to understand? How can we return to dinar and dirham as money? The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, when you see something munkar, and this monetary system is munkar, then change it in your hand. Well, if you are Russia and China and India and Brazil and South Africa, you can do it in your hand. The rest of us can't. If you can't change it in your hand, then change it with your tongue, Speak out against it. But Mufti gives fatwa that this paper money is halal. And Mufti is going to pay a terrible price in the grave unless Mufti makes tawbah. Mufti has misled so many people. So when Mufti makes tawbah, he's going to have to do it from the top of the mountain. So everybody can hear him. And if he doesn't listen, and he dies with that fatwa, what a terrible fate awaits him. You must make tawbah and return to the sunnah, which is dinar and dirham. And if you can't do that, then at least in your heart, you must detest it. Instead of accepting the bogus fatwa, at least in your heart, you must detest it. When I stand up for salah, I take my bogus paper money and I put it on the ground. I never perform salah with this in my pocket, my wallet, put it on the ground. What you can do is what my students are doing here in Cape Town. Once a month, they have a free market. And people can come and buy and sell in the market. But only the dirhams are used in the market. Only dirhams. This is already taking place here in Cape Town. They started it in Durban. South Africa is leading the way. MashaAllah. South Africa is leading the way. Better than that is to establish a permanent market. Permanent market. And in that market you use only dinar and dirhams. Very few would use dinars actually with dirhams. In Indonesia, they are minting half a dirham, 1/3 of a dirham, 1/4 of a dirham, and even 1/6 of a dirham. So you could buy a cup of tea. You don't need to use a whole dirham to buy a cup of tea. What you need to do is to build a market in the remote countryside as part of your Muslim village. And in that market, people can buy and sell. You're producing your own food because Surah Al-Kahf said, فَيَذْرَيْهُ أَذْكَى طَعَامٍ. The purest food. Food is corrupted. And when you produce your best food, you must eat your food. You don't have any food coming from outside. Feed your children with your food, except not with that rubbish. And when you have surplus food, then that can be sold. They fetch the highest price because it's the best food. So when they come in your market to buy, they'll have to buy with dirhams. So they change their rands for dirhams and then use dirhams. But when you want to buy torchlight batteries, you're not producing it in the village. How are you going to buy it? You're going to have to go back to their paper money. That's why the Prophet said you'll not be able to find a single person in all of mankind who will not be part of this system. Any more questions?
Yes. Sorry, Brother, just before I take that question, I must humbly apologize. It's an oversight from the chairman. The women can slap me afterwards, or my wife rather can slap me rather. To the ladies, appeal to the ladies that they can write down the questions on a piece of paper and pass it forward. We will have a runner, Zubair. There will be a runner that will come and collect the questions and they will pass it on to me, and I will relay the question to Maulana. We will take a question from the floor. If you can please speak in.
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned that we must seek alliances with the Shia. I watched your YouTube where you issue I wouldn't say a veiled warning, but you warn the Shias about bad-mouthing certain people.
About?
Bad-mouthing, the Shias bad-mouthing certain people. Right? Now, you mentioned here tonight that we must seek alliances with the Shia because nobody has declared them as not being Muslim. Now, I've been to Iran last year, and I want your view on this. Do you think the clerical regime will continue its hold on power? Because everybody you spoke to in the cities, they told me America is paradise. The city slickers, they hate the Ayatollahs. So I want your view on that.
I would rather not answer that question. Yes. I have my views on the subject. I didn't tell the Shia stop bad-mouthing people. I didn't use that language.
I know you didn't say that, but you talked to, sorry.
The question is, would the present regime in Iran survive? In which, for example, the Khomeini regime, revolution, shows respect for Abu Bakr Siddiq and Umar Farooq and Usman Ghani, and they say radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Okay? And they don't have this bad language now. Will they survive? What future lies in wait for Shia Iran? I would rather not express my views in public on that subject, but I do have some views of thought. I certainly do have some views of what we can expect in the future. What I do know is that when Imam al-Mahdi comes, there will be lots of Sunni who are rejected. He's a terrorist. That kind of Islam that he has, you can't live with that kind of Islam in the world today. I mean, holding on to that kind of Islam that the Imam has is like holding on to hot coals. We can't live that kind. So most Sunnis are going to reject him, Imam al-Mahdi. And I anticipate that most Shia will also reject him, because he was the Shia. But there will be those Sunni and there will be those Shia who will follow him. This is my view. And that alliance between these two groups must remain. And that is what I work for. I went to Iran 3 times already over the last year and a half. And they have consistently, I have dialogue with the ulama. Imagine a dialogue on eschatology with 40 of the specialists in Iran on eschatology, 40 of them. And I am alone. And it lasted for about 3 or 4 hours in Qom. But the nice thing was that it went all through, from beginning to end, in a respectful atmosphere. With no bad language, with no hard feelings and so on. And at the end of it, we were all embracing, we having a nice cup of tea together. You see, I thank Iran for welcoming me in this way and teaching me a few lessons in the process. Imagine you go for breakfast, and all you get for breakfast is a piece of roti and a cup of tea. They have this big roti, naan, and you might get a little bit of yogurt. You can get as much tea as you want. This is breakfast. The simplicity. Right? You go to the masjid and you see people weeping, performing salat and weeping. In other places you go and you find a masjid and they're chatting. They're chatting. As soon as the salat is over, within 1, 2, 3 minutes, everybody gone. Iran has impressed me, mashallah. The simplicity, the piety and so on. But I fear for what is to come. Yeah. So I say, don't lump all the Sunnis in one basket. And don't lump all the Shia in one basket. That they those on both sides will continue to remain brothers with each other and they would follow Imam al-Mahdi.
Due to time constraints, I'm afraid I'll have to only restrict it to the last 2 questions, the one from the ladies and the last one from the internet audience. Maulana, this is the one from the ladies. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please, I would like to know the role of Muslim women in jihad.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the most exquisite language in the Quran to teach a lesson. He says, "Ba'ala uzu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim, wal-layli idha yaghsha." He takes an oath by the night, and by that which is shrouds so mysteriously, shrouds, covers, with such mystery. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى, and he takes an oath by the day, and by its bright light, nothing covered, nothing concealed. And then he goes on to say, وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى, that in the same way that I created the night and the day, that's how I created the male and the female. In other words, the day has his functions to perform, and the night has her functions to perform. You are functionally different. Only those with the intellectual acumen of a donkey will put an equal sign between the night and the day. How can you put an equal sign between the night and day? It's stupid. They are complementary. They complement each other. So male-female equality belongs to a garbage bin. That's not proper vocabulary. They are complementary. They complement each other. So do the night and the day complement each other. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends by saying, "Inna sa'ayakum lashatta." You are functionally different. Allah didn't create men to make babies. Did he? No. He created women. And he gave to them a biological constitution, he gave them a physiological constitution, he gave to them an emotional constitution, which makes it possible for them to perform this function. And he gave men a different biological constitution, a different emotional constitution, because he gave men a different function. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا. The men have to work. to maintain the women and children. Maintain all your wives. How many wives you have? How many wives you have? What about the Sunnah? Dajjal brainwashes all of you. All of you. Brainwashes you. I don't apologize for my language. The good men have only one wife. And bad men have 2, 3 wives. And there he is. Your prophet, look at him. See? Dajjal. Brainwashing. So he gave men functional roles different from women. And men are the ones who fight wars, not women. Yes, of course, you don't have to tell me that we can have women functioning in a peripheral role on the battlefield. There was this famous woman in the Crimean War, what's her name?
Florence Nightingale.
Florence
Nightingale.
Nightingale? In the Crimean War? Huh? Ever heard about the Crimean War? You see how long now living after Crimea? That was 1852, 1853. So, women have a peripheral role to play in warfare. But we don't put women as generals. That's what they do, the Santa Claus Christianity. No, women are not in our religion out there in combat roles. Women are in peripheral roles, for example, taking care of those who are injured. Next question.
Well, okay. Let's leave the last question. I'm going to break with protocol. I know I said I'm going to have 2 questions, but I think there was a question that came up from the ladies that I feel is very important. But I'll lead with the internet one. Beloved Sheikh, how do you see this alliance with Rome happening in this geopolitical environment, and with ISIS and the killing in Syria, and with Turkey claiming to be Rome? This is from Antonius in Greece.
Oh, look at that. I hope I meet you when I visit Greece. Inshallah. It is a mystery, really. There's only one Muslim country now is in alliance, almost in alliance with Rome. Sorry, 2. Iran and Syria. Syria to such an extent that Russia has a naval base in the Syrian Mediterranean coast. Okay? But Iran is the one which is forging stronger and stronger military ties and political ties, economic ties with Russia. Pakistan has been eating halwa for so long. The Pakistan Armed Forces and the Pakistan government, and this is the most polite language I can use. I wish I could use some stronger language for that. But finally, when they did the Bin Laden stunt in Abbottabad, remember? They killed him, and then they threw his body in the sea, and a big fish came and swallowed it. You remember? Yeah. Then the Pakistanis realized. So the Pakistan president to Moscow, and the Pakistan Prime Minister to Beijing. Frightened, terrified, because they're now expecting the attack that they know is coming. Then China issued a statement that surprised the Western world. They didn't expect it from China, because China has never done such a thing before. Never. China issued a statement, very small statement. An attack on Pakistan will be an attack on China. Full stop, finish, that's it. The Pakistanis cannot be illegally, because they don't want to take on China. They don't want to take on China. Pakistan then entered, or is entering into the SARC, the alliance which is conquering NATO with Russia and China, Kazakhstan and the others. And Pakistan is seeking membership there. And the Russian defense minister just visited Pakistan and signed a defense agreement with Pakistan. So there are winds of change in Pakistan taking place now. And one can only hope that something could emerge. But when the Malhama takes place, I don't think that the nation states and their sovereign status will survive. That is, the banks are going to rule the world. The banking system will rule the world. And the territorial frontiers are going to recede in importance. And so the alliance that I'm seeing with Rome is actually an alliance of the Muslim people. Because the next thing to take place after the Malhama would be the conquest of Constantinople. For that conquest to take place, you have to have a naval component, and that's Russia. But what about the armies on the land? They come from the north, which is Albania and Bosnia, and the Russian, the 20 million Russians, Muslims, and Tatarstan and so on. But the bulk of the army will come from the Arab world, particularly North Africa. So if you're coming from the Arab world to join the army that will conquer Constantinople, what the Zionists have done is to create ISIS to block you. That's why it is this territory that they're taking control of. So when you want to join that army for the conquest of Constantinople, you're going to come face to face with a heavily armed ISIS. But I believe that the Prophet ﷺ has prophesied, and therefore it will come to pass, that there will be an alliance with Rome, and that you will conquer Constantinople. What I did not do in the lecture is to go beyond the Quran to take all the ahadith. I didn't do that. If I had done that, then you would have found that sometimes within a single hadith, there's a part of the hadith which is in harmony with the Quran and a part which is in conflict with the Quran. What do you do? When a hadith is in conflict with the Quran, what do? You stay with the Quran. Next one.
I'm going to ask you to decide whether you want to answer this question.
Oh, I love this question. MashaAllah. Thank you, sister. If the most learned person in this masjid says that the reason why the woman must stay longer in Sajda, I think I know who wrote this question. The women must stay longer in Sajda than the men. Because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, men and women used to pray in the same space. And if a woman was to raise her head, she might see an unwelcome sight because there was no parda in between. There was no curtain in between. There was no bamboo wall in between, no wooden wall in between. What else? Huh? He didn't put the women in a balcony. He didn't put them in a basement. He didn't put them in an annex. He didn't put them behind the men but put a curtain to separate them. No. He put men and women to pray in the same space. And when we build our masjid in our Muslim village, that is how they're going to be. The women are going to be behind the men, and if you like that, you could stay in Johannesburg. Don't come to our village. Stay there. Don't come to our village. Because the women are going to pray behind the men whether you like it or you don't. Yes, if there are conditions of famine, you can suspend the law of cutting off the hand of the thief. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala did that. But can you suspend the law permanently? Huh? Can you suspend the law permanently, the Sharia permanently? I have to restrain myself from using violent language. Similarly, if there are conditions of insecurity, you could suspend the right of women to come to the masjid. Yes, of course. And that was done in the past. But can you do it permanently? No. You can't. And if Allah's Messenger put them behind the men, that's where they should be. What will happen if you put the woman in front of the men? No man will be able to perform the salah. That's why. So they put the woman behind the men, with no barrier, no cloth, nothing. So women and men prayed in the same space. And when the Imam stands on the mimbar, the woman could see the Imam. And when the Imam is leading the Salat and he goes down in the Sijdah Sijdah in the Quran, there are 14 of them, the woman will not be in ruku. Because they can see the Sijdah in Salat, not ruku. But when you put them behind a curtain, you'll have to answer on Judgment Day for them. I will not have to answer, you will have to answer. Alright? So when we have our Muslim village, this is what we do. Women can perform Salat at home, or they can come to the masjid. That's their choice. But if they want to come to the masjid, they pray behind the men. And there will be no parda, there will be no curtain, nothing to stop them from viewing. And when the men go down in Sijdah, you better have enough cloth to cover yourself. If temporarily you don't have enough cloth, the Prophet said, let the women stay in Sijdah longer than the men. One more comment. If you deny them the right that Allah and the Messenger gave to them, guess what's coming? And when it comes, don't cry, and don't call me on the phone, and don't come knocking on my door. They're going to have masajid only for women. The women are going to build the masjid. And the woman will be an imam, and she'll be on the member, and she'll give the khutbah for Jum'ah. And she's going to lead the salah. And the men will pray at the back of the woman. When that happens, you deserve what you get. Yes. You deserve what you get. Because you deny them the right that Allah and His Messenger gave for them. But you don't have to accept my views. No, just wait. See what's coming.